Hi, and welcome back. In this lecture, we're talking about how a Roman Republic became a Roman Empire. In part one, we talked a lot about Julius Caesar and how he absorbed more power, and how his adopted nephew, Octavian, became the first emperor of Rome. And that's a really important moment. Once he becomes emperor, Rome never looks back. They are an empire till the day they die. And that's both a strength for them, but also a weakness, given that they're going to have quite a few emperors who are going to be very bad at being emperors. So we'll talk about that more when we get to the fall of Rome later this unit. In this part, we're going to talk more about the power of Rome, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that I got to see when I visited Rome a couple of years ago. So some of the best emperors Rome had was Emperor Trajan. And again, I'm not going to test you on these slides, but I think it's worth mentioning some of the best emperors that Rome had. We know Emperor Trajan. He built Trajan's Forum. We saw that in engineering and empire. He had a great reputation, was very efficient, and he expanded the Roman military. I like Trajan's Forum. I think it's one of the cooler buildings that the Romans built. So this is me in front of Trajan's Forum. You see Trajan's column in the background there. So just a short little video. Here's what Trajan's Forum with the floor plan would have looked like. What you just saw was me standing right about here. This would have been the market buildings at Trajan's Forum. So most of it is gone or has been pilfered away over the years. This is just another image of what it would have looked like. Here's Trajan's column. Again, if you've seen Engineering and Empire, you saw this very, very articulate carvings of Trajan's success in Dacia in battle. Just another image of it. This is an image I took, so you can go down there and kind of really take a look at it. We didn't get a chance to go that far into, you had to take some steps down to get to this level, but I would have loved to do that if we would have had more time. So that's me in front of Trajan's column there. One of the Assassin's Creed games, you could visit Trajan's Forum, so here you can see the building as well as the column. I love those games. I love that you can visit real history in there. Another really good emperor was Marcus Aurelius. He ruled from 161 to 180 AD. He was a gifted general. He was a philosopher. Really, his death really ended the Pax Romana, and that's something we're going to talk about here very soon, one of the next slides. Kind of like after Marcus Aurelius, things started to get worse. So Marcus Aurelius is considered to be one of the better emperors of Rome. He was in the film Gladiator, so this is him. He's in the beginning of the film. They don't accurately portray his death, but they do accurately portray the time period in that film in which he lived. I love that movie. I highly recommend watching it. It's not completely historically accurate, but it gets some things right. So our result from part one that we really didn't get to is now that Octavian's emperor, Rome is officially a dictatorship under the rule of one emperor. We now know it as the Roman Empire. Again, it will never change. It will never go back to being a democracy. An empire is only as strong as its emperors. I mean, your number one job as an emperor is to take care of your people. If you choose not to take care of your people and they start suffering, things are going to go downhill quite quickly. We have a number of emperors in Roman history that just don't do that very well. They just don't take care of their people. Again, I'll talk more about that when we get to the fall of Rome in one of our next stories in this unit. But let's talk about the empire. Let's talk about some major things about it. So we got to talk about something called the Pax Romana. The Pax Romana is really the peak of Rome's power from 27 BC to 180 AD. This period is known as the Pax Romana or the Roman Peace. We should sort of recognize that because we've talked about the Pax Mongolica. The Pax Mongolica meant the same thing. It was really this time period when the Romans had such good control over everything that no one was picking a fight with Rome. You didn't want to pick a fight with Rome because you knew you would lose. The roads were safe, travel was safe because the Romans controlled everything. We said the same thing about the Mongols in the Pax Mongolica, which would come about 1,300 years later. The population of Rome was about 60 to 80 million, with a little over 1 million of people in the city of Rome itself. That was possible due to the aqueduct systems that they built to bring in fresh water for the people. Common coinage was a very symbolic thing of the Roman Empire. So you could go and trade all over the empire and they had the same coins. That makes it far easier for me to do business with you. Even if you and I are not from the same territory, we knew that if we had Roman coins, we could do business. I mean, imagine going across state borders today in the United States and having to exchange your coins because you use different currency. That would make trade very difficult. So the Romans had this figured out. And they're still finding Roman coins all over the Roman territory. They're worth a lot of money today. Another thing the Roman Empire is well known for is its roads. Romans built thousands and thousands of miles of roads. The phrase was that all roads lead to Rome, and that was mostly true. They wanted to move their military very quickly, so they built 250,000 miles of roads. And we saw this in engineering and empire as well. The roads were very well built. They had drainage capabilities, and they had gravel and pebbles and paving stones, so that they were well maintained and certainly well usable. I've seen some of these roads. These are two pictures that I took of Roman roads that are still intact, which is pretty amazing considering these roads are at least 1,500 years old and still usable. So pretty cool. Famous phrase, when in Rome. I know there's a movie made about this. I've never seen it. I heard it wasn't very good, but a very famous phrase. So anyway, thought I'd share that with you. Talked about how there's a lot of poor people in Rome. So 90% of the population are either poor or enslaved. Slavery was common. So the Colosseum, which was called the Flavian Amphitheater, which was built by Emperor Vespasian, was used to distract the masses. Basically, it gave the people somewhere to go and something to do to forget the fact that they were unemployed or miserable. So tickets were free. You could go to the Colosseum and watch games all day long, and you'd forget about life for a while. So it was used to distract the masses because much of the city of Rome was unemployed. Gladiatorial battles were popular for entertainment. Hence, you can see the little gif they're playing from the movie Gladiator. Meanwhile, the rich continued to live extravagantly. Again, that divide between the rich and the poor is a really big deal, and that's going to really matter when we get to the fall of Rome. I'm not saying we should go for pure socialism here. That's not the point of me bringing this up. But if you're ever going to rule a country or have an economic policy for your country, you got to try to find some balance between the rich and the poor. Because if you continue to leave the masses hungry, enslaved, they may eventually react. And sometimes that reaction can come quite violently, like in the French Revolution, which we're going to study second semester. So I mentioned Vespasian. Vespasian was considered one of Rome's best emperor. Basically, what I want to mention here, again, I'm not going to read all of this to you, is he built the Flavian Amphitheater, which is later known as the Colosseum. And that was built to give the people something to do. So this is me inside the Colosseum. This was a big deal for me to be able to get inside the Colosseum. A big bucket list item. I told you the movie Gladiator is one of my all-time favorites. So here you can see it on the ground floor of the Colosseum. It's pretty fantastic, not going to lie. I would have loved to see it in its heyday. They say the Roman Colosseum could seat 50,000 people. U.S. Bank Stadium seats 60,000 for Vikings games, and it's huge. And the Colosseum's big, too. I mean, it really is. I struggle to see 50,000 people fitting in there. I could see 30, 40,000, but 50,000, I don't know. But that's just my opinion. I have not read that anywhere. You would have had to be really tightly packed in there. This is my wife and I and my brother and his wife, just another picture of us inside the Colosseum. Now, inside the Colosseum would have been all covered in polished marble. Most of that has either been pilfered away by thieves or just time has weathered it away. But you can see some places within the Colosseum. So, I mean, it would have looked polished and pristine. Another reason why I would have loved to see it in its heyday. This is just our whole group inside the Colosseum. So this would have been, I believe, January 2nd of 2016. So again, gladiator battles took place there. They say sometimes they flooded the arena. It was a pretty unique place to go and watch some sporting events. This is the Colosseum in Assassin's Creed. This Assassin's Creed game took place during the Renaissance, so that's why you see the Colosseum in ruin form here and not in pristine condition. There is a Colosseum at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, again bringing in that pop culture piece. It's where like Celine Dion plays or Elton John. And, I've actually been to the entrance of it. My brother and my brother-in-law went and saw Elton John there, so I've been to it. I just haven't been inside of it. One of the other features, now I'm just bringing this in as an additional piece, is you saw in Engineering Empire, you saw the Pantheon. The Pantheon's really cool. It's a temple built for the gods. The most iconic feature of the Pantheon is the oculus at the top on part of its dome. So you can see all of that here. You can see the design at the top. They use concrete, Roman concrete, and that made the ceiling lighter to use those inlays like you see there. When it does rain, a lot of water does fall on the floor of the Pantheon, but it's an absolutely beautiful building. If you're ever in Rome, you can just walk right into it. You don't need tickets or anything. Pretty cool place. And here's, of course, the Pantheon from Assassin's Creed. One of the last places I'm going to show you is the Hippodrome. Now, most of the Hippodrome is gone. This is just it's where they had the chariot races, and they say 200,000 people could sit in here. There's only a small section of it left down in this corner. Excuse me. So we did go and stand where it was. You can see the high walls where like the bleachers would have been, the slanted slopes there. And I did one of my little selfie videos there too. So if you'll notice, right in that corner, this would have been the Emperor's Palace up here, and there's an aqueduct up there. But if you look back in this corner right here is the only part that's left. But this would have been a massive building. And that's where they had the chariot races. Circus Maximus, I think, is actually what it's called. One other thing we saw, and this is built in the 1700s, so it's not even Roman, it's more Italian, is Trevi Fountain. It's beautiful. Just included that in here as it's in the city of Rome, but it's not Roman. So I just included that. Anyway, Rome was held together through efficient means of government, started by Augustus. However, many terrible emperors would gradually weaken the empire over the next 400 years. I told you in my class we're going to play Jenga to illustrate the fall of Rome. So that's why I put this in here. I think it's a great analogy to show you how the Roman Empire continues to move forward, though it's getting weaker and weaker in the process. And we're going to see the little push that was necessary to knock it down. So this is kind of foreshadowing where we're going in the future. So our result, our end here, Rome began as a democratic republic, but through the actions of Julius Caesar and Octavian, Rome embraced dictatorial rule, which is ruler of a dictator, through its emperors. It was during the peak of the Roman Empire that Jesus Christ would be born, and he dramatically changed the Roman Empire as well as the world. And that's going to be the next piece we're going to talk about in this class, is the rise of Christianity and Roman influence. So that'll bring us back to our constructive response question, compare and contrast the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire using specific examples. Clearly, we've seen that the Republic and the Empire are governed very differently. The size of them are very different, but they both had very powerful armies with their legions. They both were known for building a lot of roads, so we see a lot that we can use to answer this question and finish things up. So that's going to do it for us here today. Hope you learned something. We'll see you next time.